This happened last summer, when my girlfriend and I finally took our first real trip together. Up until then, she had only joined me on a family vacation once, but that didn't really count. This time it was just the two of us. No parents, no schedules, no obligations. It felt like a big step in our relationship, something we had both been looking forward to for a long time. For privacy's sake, I'll call my girlfriend Vanessa. One thing about her that's important to understand is that she always tells me I'm too nice for my own good. According to her, there's a difference between being polite and being the kind of overly friendly person who treats strangers like lifelong friends. I've always seen it as a strength, but she's warned me more than once that it could get me into trouble. At the time, I didn't take that seriously enough. We were driving down to Ocean City, Maryland, a place I used to visit with my family when I was younger. It's a typical beach town. Condos, hotels, restaurants, all lined up along the ocean. About 20 minutes away from our condo, I pulled into a gas station to fill up and grab some drinks. While I was inside, a guy accidentally bumped into me. He immediately started apologizing, almost excessively. I brushed it off and told him it was no big deal. He introduced himself as Henry. He looked like someone you'd trust instantly, well put together, confident, friendly. He made direct eye contact when he spoke, smiled easily, and carried himself in a way that made you feel comfortable. We ended up chatting in line for a couple minutes. I told him we were heading to Ocean City, and his whole face lit up. He said he and his girlfriend were heading there too. When I mentioned the condo we were staying at, he said he thought he knew exactly where it was and believed they were staying nearby. That coincidence excited me more than it probably should have. Before I even thought twice, we exchanged numbers. I told him we should meet up sometime during the week, maybe grab drinks or hang out on the beach. We gave each other a quick hug and went our separate ways. When I got back to the car, Vanessa immediately knew I had made a new friend. I told her what happened and she just rolled her eyes. She didn't say much at the time, but I could tell she wasn't thrilled. We got to the condo later that afternoon, settled in, and spent a quiet evening relaxing. Our room was on the 5th floor with a balcony overlooking the ocean. It felt perfect, peaceful, exactly what we needed. The next morning we went down to the beach early. We liked getting there before the crowds, sitting with coffee and just enjoying the calm. A few hours in, I heard someone call my name. I turned around and there was Henry, waving like we were already close friends. Behind him was a woman he introduced as Sarah. Something about her immediately felt off. While Henry was energetic and engaging, she was the complete opposite. She wore oversized sunglasses, a wide-brimmed hat, long sleeves, and leggings, completely out of place for the beach. She barely spoke, just gave a quick wave and a forced smile. She also carried a large tote bag that looked oddly empty. It was like she didn't want to be there at all. Henry asked if they could join us, and of course I said yes. They didn't bring chairs or towels. He just sat in the sand, and Sarah stood there awkwardly until I offered her my chair. She hesitated, then accepted. Henry told us they were staying in the building right next to ours. That should have been a red flag, but instead, I thought it was an incredible coincidence. We hung out for about an hour before heading back upstairs. Before we left, Henry kept insisting we all go out for drinks that night. I told him I'd let him know. As soon as we got back to the room, Vanessa started voicing her concerns. She said Henry felt fake, like he was mirroring my personality too much. She also pointed out how strange Sarah was, complaining about the sun while willingly coming to the beach with no gear. The more she talked, the more it made sense. I agreed not to reach out to Henry again. I didn't want to ruin the trip. That night I was out on the balcony smoking a cigar when I thought I saw Sarah down on the beach. She was alone, dressed the exact same way as before. It was late, and something about that didn't sit right with me. I brushed it off and went inside. As I was checking the door before bed, I thought I heard voices outside. That wasn't unusual, but the voices sounded like they were right outside our door. As I got closer, the doorknob suddenly moved, like someone was trying to open it. Instead of panicking, I just called out that they had the wrong room. Immediately, I heard footsteps running away. I assumed it was a mistake, Someone drunk, maybe. I double-checked the lock and went to bed. The next day, it happened again. Henry and Sarah showed up out of nowhere on the beach. They were wearing the exact same clothes as before. That alone was strange, but I tried to ignore it. We didn't stay long. I told Henry we had dinner plans and left. He seemed overly eager for us to meet up later. Back at the condo, I looked down from the balcony and saw Sarah standing alone near our building, facing the ocean. A few minutes later, Henry came out from what looked like the base of our building. They had some kind of tense interaction before he stormed off and she followed. It didn't feel normal. That night, while we were out at dinner, Henry kept calling me. I ignored it. Eventually, I texted him saying we were heading back and going to bed. He immediately called again, then sent a message. "Let's meet before you get back. It's too early to sleep." I declined again. Then came the message that changed everything. "Don't go to your room yet." We both stopped walking when I read it. Vanessa looked at me, and for the first time I felt that something was seriously wrong. We hesitated, but eventually went back anyway. When we got to our door, it was slightly open. I knew I had locked it. Vanessa stayed in the hallway while I slowly stepped inside. At first, everything looked normal. Then I noticed the balcony door was open. In the bedroom, our suitcases had been torn apart. Clothes were everywhere. The only things missing were a pair of my shoes, Vanessa's bathing suit, and a photo of us that had been sitting on the dresser. We called the police immediately. We told them about Henry and Sarah, but those names turned out to be fake. There was no record of them staying in the building next to us. The phone number Henry used was disconnected. The police said it doesn't happen often, but sometimes people target tourists, gain their trust, learn where they're staying, and then break in when they know the room is empty. Looking back, all the signs were there. I just didn't see them. And now I understand what Vanessa meant. Being too nice isn't always harmless. Sometimes it's exactly what someone is counting on. Every year, my family goes on a big vacation together, the kind we all look forward to months in advance. We stay at my aunt and uncle's house right on the ocean in West Palm Beach. Their son Will is my age, and we've always been close, more like siblings than cousins. My other aunt and uncle come too, along with their kids. Their daughter Teresa is basically my best friend. We grew up together, went through high school side by side, and because we look alike and share the same last name, people always thought we were twins. We leaned into that, telling strangers we actually were twins just for fun. Those vacations were always chaotic in the best way, especially as we got older. During the day, we'd be the perfect family on the beach. At night, though, everything changed. Will, being the local, knew all the bars and clubs, and the three of us would go out and party like we had no responsibilities in the world. One of those nights a few years ago started like any other. We were bar hopping, laughing, drinking, and enjoying the warm Florida air. Will, as usual, got a little too confident once he'd had enough to drink. It wasn't exactly unusual for him, and Teresa and I had gotten pretty good at recognizing when he crossed that invisible line. That was usually our cue to call it a night. I always made sure we got home safely. I'd limit how much I drank so I could keep an eye on them, especially Will, who had a habit of pushing things too far. That night, he definitely pushed it too far. He started mouthing off to people inside one of the bars, acting like being a local gave him some kind of immunity. It didn't. Within minutes, a bouncer grabbed him and physically threw him out. It wasn't subtle. He stumbled a bit but didn't seem hurt, just embarrassed and still laughing like it was all part of the fun. Teresa stayed with him while I stepped away to find us a ride home. He called me a buzzkill, which only confirmed that it was time to leave. I ordered an Uber and called my boyfriend while we waited, telling him about the chaos of the night. He laughed and told me to text him when we got back. I had just hung up when Teresa came running toward me, panic written all over her face. She said she looked away for a second and Will had wandered off. My stomach dropped instantly. He was in no condition to be alone. I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. That was typical Will, but it didn't make me feel any better. We split up, running around the street yelling his name, trying to spot him in the crowd. After a few minutes, Teresa shouted that she saw him. Relief hit me immediately, but it didn't last long. He was walking in a crooked line toward a dark, heavily wooded area off the street. It looked like a swamp, or at least something close to it. Mud, thick trees, and darkness swallowing everything beyond a few feet. Teresa grabbed him just before he reached the edge and started yelling at him, frustrated and scared. He just laughed like a child. The second she let go of him, he bolted straight into the swamp. We didn't even think, we just ran after him. The ground was uneven and soaked. Mud clung to our shoes, slowing us down, but adrenaline pushed us forward. We used our phone flashlights to see, but the light barely cut through the darkness. It didn't take long to catch up to him. He wasn't moving fast, just stumbling forward deeper into the trees. As we reached him, I was about to grab his arm when he suddenly raised his hand and whispered for us to be quiet. At first, I thought he was joking, still drunk and playing around. But then I saw his face. The laughter was gone. He looked genuinely scared. That alone was enough to make me stop. Teresa noticed it too. We crouched down instinctively, listening. That's when we heard it. Screaming. It came from somewhere deeper in the swamp, echoing through the trees in a way that made it impossible to tell exactly where it was coming from. It wasn't normal screaming. It didn't sound like someone yelling for fun or even just arguing. It sounded desperate, raw, like someone was in real trouble. The kind of sound that makes your entire body go cold. None of us said a word. We just stayed low, frozen in place, listening. The screams continued, rising and falling, echoing around us. It felt like they were coming from everywhere at once. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might give us away. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. Complete silence. We didn't move. Not for a long time. It felt like forever, but it was probably around 15 minutes. Eventually, without saying anything, we all came to the same decision. We needed to get out of there. Fast. We ran. We didn't look back. Didn't stop until we were out of the swamp and back on the street near the bars. The noise of the outside world felt surreal after what we had just heard. We got into the Uber and rode back in silence. The alcohol had completely worn off. Whatever that was, it sobered us instantly. Back at the house, we tried to make sense of it. We threw out every explanation we could think of, but none of them felt right. Teresa suggested we go back in the morning. She said in daylight we could actually see what was out there and maybe figure out what we heard. I didn't want to go back, but somehow she convinced us. The next day, she led us right back to the same spot. I still don't know how she managed that, but she did. The ground still had the marks where we had crouched the night before. We stood there trying to remember which direction the screams came from. Somehow we all pointed in the same general direction. We moved carefully through the brush, pushing past branches and stepping through mud. After a few minutes, Teresa suddenly stopped and gasped. Hanging from a tree branch was a torn sleeve from a denim jacket. Just the sleeve. On the ground beneath it were footprints, a lot of them. They overlapped in a way that didn't look random. It looked like people had been moving around in a small space, struggling. My stomach twisted as I looked at the disturbed mud. This wasn't normal. A few steps ahead, we found the rest of the jacket lying on the ground in a small clearing. More footprints surrounded it, clustered tightly together. And then, leading away from the clearing, there was only one set of footprints. They disappeared into thicker brush where we couldn't follow. That was enough for me. I told them I was done and that we needed to leave. Teresa and Will didn't argue, but they weren't as shaken as I was. Back at the house, we debated what to do. I was convinced we had stumbled onto something serious, maybe even a crime. But Will insisted it could have been nothing. A prank, a coincidence. He even warned that if we involved the police, we might end up being the ones questioned, not believed. At the time, that fear got to me. So we did nothing. Years later, I still think about that night, about those screams, about that jacket and those footprints. I don't know what we heard, and I don't know what we found. But I do know one thing. Some sounds stay with you forever, and I've never forgotten that one. I was a senior in high school when this happened. back when I thought I had everything figured out. I wasn't a bad kid, not really. I just had this attitude, especially toward my family. I acted like I was too cool to spend time with them, too mature for family trips, too busy for anything that didn't revolve around my own life. Looking back, it's embarrassing. My parents were great, and my little brother Jake looked up to me more than I deserved. He was 10 at the time, 8 years younger than me, which might as well have made us from different worlds. Still, my parents always expected me to include him, to entertain him, to be a good older brother. Most of the time, I didn't even try. Every year, we'd take some kind of trip, usually somewhere near the ocean. That year, my parents picked Maine. As an adult, I can admit it was beautiful. But back then, at 18, I thought it was the most boring place on earth. The house we rented didn't help. It looked like something straight out of a horror movie. A massive white house with dark green shutters, tucked deep in the woods where the trees pressed in close on all sides. Even my dad joked about it when we pulled up, saying, "This is how most horror movies start." Not exactly comforting. Inside, the place was just as strange. The layout didn't make sense. Hallways connected in odd ways, rooms appeared where they shouldn't, and the entire place felt like a maze designed by someone who didn't believe in logic. At the center of the house was a huge living room with tall windows that looked out over a dense forest. During the day, it was peaceful. At night, it felt like something out there might be watching. But the strangest part wasn't the layout. It was the fact that the house was connected to another smaller house. And that house wasn't empty. That's where the owner lived. His name was Hugh. Hugh was odd, tall, thin, always wearing this old stained bucket hat that looked like it hadn't been washed in years. His teeth were yellow, his smile a little too wide. But it wasn't his appearance that made you uncomfortable. It was the way he acted. He was overly friendly, loud, a little too eager to talk. He kept going on about how kind people in Maine were, repeating it like it was something we needed to believe. My parents smiled politely, nodding along, while I just stood there, already annoyed with everything. Before he left, he told us he'd be right next door if we needed anything, but that we probably wouldn't see or hear from him all week. I remember thinking how strange it was that someone could live that close and expect us to forget about it. But we tried. Well, my family tried. I spent most of the first night complaining, saying I wanted to leave, saying this trip was stupid. I was looking for any excuse to get out of there. The next morning, my parents decided we were all going on a hike. I refused. We argued back and forth until they finally gave in and let me stay behind. The truth was, I had just started talking to a girl back home, and I didn't want to lose service out in the woods. So I stayed. That decision is something I still think about, because if I hadn't stayed, none of this would have happened. After they left, the house felt different, too quiet, too empty. I tried to ignore it, texting and joking around, sending pictures of the weird layout to the girl I was talking to. Eventually, I told her about the adjoining house. She didn't believe me, so I decided to prove it. At the end of one of the hallways was a door, the one that led into Hugh's house. I started recording, laughing as I walked toward it, fully expecting it to be locked. It wasn't. That should have been enough to stop me, but I opened it anyway. Hugh's side of the house was normal. A small living room, a couch, a TV, nothing unusual. It looked lived in, but not messy, just quiet. Too quiet. Then I heard a door close somewhere deeper inside. The sound echoed. I froze. For a second, I just stood there, staring into the dim hallway ahead of me. Then instinct kicked in, and I turned and ran back into our side of the house, slamming the door behind me. A few minutes later, there was a knock. It was Hugh, still smiling, still cheerful, but there was something off. He asked me why I was filming inside his house. I tried to lie, but he didn't buy it. He told me he had cameras, that he saw everything. Then he laughed it off like it was nothing, making a comment about how people in Maine don't lock their doors. I laughed awkwardly, but the moment he left, I locked that door. Then I dragged a heavy wooden chair and wedged it under the handle, just in case. When my family got back, they were more upset that I had gone into Hugh's house than anything else. And yeah, they were right. But I didn't want to admit that. Not long after, they told me we were going out for dinner. I refused again. They didn't argue this time. They just left. And that's when everything changed. The house felt different after sunset. Not just quiet. Empty. The kind of empty that feels like something is missing, or something is waiting. A couple of hours later, I was sitting on the couch when I heard a loud crash from down the hallway. My heart jumped into my throat. It came from the direction of the door, the one leading to Hugh's house. I moved slowly, carefully, toward the hallway. It was dark, so dark I could barely see the end of it. My hand found the light switch. I flipped it. The chair I had wedged against the door was knocked over. Lying beside it was a backpack, not mine. I didn't think. I ran. Straight to the screened-in porch. I locked the door behind me, then crouched low, hiding under a table like that would somehow protect me. That's when I heard footsteps, inside the house. Slow, calm. Not searching, not rushing, just walking. Like whoever it was knew exactly where they were. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just sat there, waiting for something, anything, to happen. Then I saw headlights. My dad's van. Relief hit me so hard I almost collapsed. I ran outside, yelling for them to stay in the car, trying to explain what had happened, but I could barely get the words out. Then Hugh appeared. But this time, he wasn't smiling. His face looked pale, serious, afraid. He pulled my dad aside and spoke quietly. I tried to listen, but I couldn't hear what they were saying. A moment later, my dad turned to me and told me to get in the van. Now, no questions. We drove away fast, not stopping until we reached a grocery store parking lot down the road. That's when he told us. Hugh had checked his cameras. At first, he thought it was me again. But then he saw something else. A man, tall, bald, coming out of my bedroom. Not my dad, not me, someone else. Someone who had been inside the house the entire time. Hugh said the man picked up the backpack and went back into my room. Just disappeared. Police were called. They searched the area. They chased someone into the woods, but they never caught him. They never found out how he got in, or why he was there. We left the next morning. Didn't even pack everything properly. Just left. A few months later, my dad followed up. They still hadn't found him. No answers. No explanation. Sometimes I try to convince myself it was just a homeless guy looking for shelter. Something harmless. Something explainable. But then I think about how long he must have been there. Watching. Waiting. Maybe even in that room while I was sleeping the night before. And that's when it hits me. The scariest part wasn't seeing him. It was knowing he was there and I never even realized it.